Hello YouTube friends. Here's the next installment of Patrick's Ford Galaxie 500 XL rebuild. So he's done some work on the roof and he needs to epoxy prime it. You remember the lead strip between the two panels? He pulled that out, filled that, sanded it, so that's good. And on the trunk he put a skim coat of body filler just to take out those imperfections. So sanded that down, and next up will be epoxy priming.
All right, just to continue on what Faye was talking about, you'll notice that I don't go into details about doing all the body work. There's a lot of guys that do have some good videos on there. A couple I listened to, Bad Chad. He's an interesting guy, but he does have a few good ideas, so I've watched some of his videos, and they're pretty entertaining. Amazing Metalworks, I started watching them because they were doing an old Galaxie like this one, so I started watching a bit of their stuff. They're pretty good at doing the bodywork as well. Fitzy's Fabrications, and they're really good at, they can build body panels incredible with homemade parts. So if you're doing a homemade job and you want to learn how to do some bodywork, really good guy to learn how to do some steel metal fabrication. Another couple guys, Sylvester's Customs, and they're basically do restoration. So they really promote how to use epoxy primer and how to do body work and stuff like that. So they're really good. They're professionals. They try to get everything just perfect. Another guy is Carthage Classic Cars. Use them quite a bit as well to watch. And you know, you'll notice on the internet, everybody has a different opinion what needs to be done. And I do a little bit of both, you know, basically, you know, doing the body work, Sylvester's and Carthage, you know, look at some of their stuff. I'll show you a couple of things though I do and don't. So you'll notice right here, now most of them promote putting epoxy primer before you do anything. And I had done epoxy primer, but with the lead here, when I took it out, I didn't epoxy prime before I did this. Usually I do, but in this case I used this Marglass, which is a fiberglass reinforced body filler. So it's pretty tight bond, so I wasn't as worried about it. But I did that. I'm gonna epoxy prime here, of course, before I finish the body work. So that's one thing I did, kind of an exception to the rule. Same as up here, when I was block sanding, of course, I found a little bit of, you know, I had to go over a couple spots. I've got some work I've got to do on that. That's bare metal. Part of it's bare metal because, of course, I had to strip all the body filler off here. As for the trunk, I wasn't really planning on doing the whole trunk, but as I started feeling, going back and forth, I noticed that there was some low spots where the reinforcement underneath the trunk is there. You'll get a couple different opinions about using pencils. So you'll notice I got a bit of pencil marks on here. I did that. Some of the restoration companies say that's fine. Some of them don't. I did it on the trunk. I probably won't do it going forward. Even though I'm epoxy priming, which should seal it, keep it from bleeding through. It could bleed through in the future, so I'm not going to take the chance. I did it on the trunk, but I won't do it anywhere else. Just a reminder, of course, so I had to do some extra body work because this is a new panel and the quarter is a new panel. And in here is where the factory seam was. And I had a bit of issues here. This was a high spot. So when I was working through it, I found it high and I had to do some extra work there a couple of times. So I had to redo that. And yeah, so now I'm just debating. So I'm going to epoxy prime. And then when I've talked to or watching videos and people say you can't sand epoxy primer. What I've found with epoxy primer, they're right, it gums up unless you let it cure for 2 to 3 weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to epoxy prime it and I'm going to let it dry, and I'll know it's cured when I can take the air sander. I can go through it and it doesn't plug up the sander. When it does that, I know it's cured enough. I'm going to scuff it all down, and then I'm going to use polyester primer on it. And again, with the polyester primer, I'll give it a few days to cure, make sure it's shrunk and everything's good. Most of the guys that I've mentioned there before talk about making sure you've got the epoxy primer dried, cured, and shrunk enough that you can put the polyester on. Because if you don't, they say it'll shrink, and then you'll have some phantom waves is what they call it. So that's about it for the latest update. And hopefully by the next time I do a video, which will probably be a few weeks because we'll be out of town next weekend, it'll be polyester prep.